Good afternoon. You are tuning in with Mandy Lynn on Local 107.3 CFMH, your favorite only community radio station here in St. John, awesome New Brunswick. I hope everybody is doing well. I hope everybody had a great, fantastic break and holidays, and you got to have a chance to have some much needed time off. I want to give a shout out to last show's guest, Nick Bernstein from James Corden's Senior Vice President of Late Night Television. Shout out to you, Nick. Thanks so much for doing the show. It was so nice to have you on. And shout out to James Corden. Thank you for getting upset at Nick for doing Canada radio instead of booking the Late Late Show on a cruise. I hope that you guys get the opportunity to do the cruise, and I hope that everybody's doing well. Also, like to give thanks to Premier Blaine Higgs, who was on following Nick Bernstein, and we have a few upcoming great guests that you're going to want to make sure you set the dials to 107.3 CFMH. Our guest coming up next week is going to be If I Had $1 Million, Bare Naked Ladies singer Stephen Page. Make sure you tune in. You're going to want to hear from him. We will be talking about the Governor General Award that was rewarded to Ryan Reynolds, Canada's own, and how Stephen Page sang the anthem and wrote "Canada Loves You Back." Ryan, we love you. Stephen Page, we love you. We can't wait to talk to you more about this and more about the songwriting process. I'm very, very excited for the folks that are listening right now. For my guest, we're going to hear from Ryan in just a second, and I'm sure that everybody's heard of him by now. If you didn't already, he is season 14 of America's Got Talent. He was third place, and he returned again to the Champions 2, and he made it all the way to the semifinals. Now, taking a break after a crazy, crazy schedule he's going to talk about, this is his first chance to finally sit down for a second, and you guessed it, right here with Tuning In with Mandy Lynn on 107.3. Ryan, how are you today?
I'm good. I just want to clarify for anyone who might just be listening. I am not Ryan Reynolds. I'm Ryan Niemiller. For a second there, I thought like, you're going to surprise me with Ryan Reynolds? I want to meet Ryan Reynolds. That'd be awesome.
Wait a minute, you're not Ryan Reynolds?
I get that mistake a lot. I am a half-armed Ryan Reynolds. That's what I'm called down here in the States.
Absolutely. And Ryan, not Reynolds. Can we just say, is that what we're going to call you the entire
time? You know what? I'm okay with that. I am 100% okay with that. I will be Ryan, not Reynolds.
The other Ryan. How about one of we have a few the other Ryan, like there's 10 tops or something like that, I think, or 8 of them.
Well, it's always the thing, like when you're like growing up and you had the friends, like there's Ryan, then there's crippled Ryan. Like that's how you give them nicknames.
So talk to me a little bit about, I'm going to start, I guess, maybe we go to the beginning. Who are you, not Ryan?
Who am I? Well, I'm not Ryan Reynolds. We'll start with that.
Okay.
So Ryan Niemiller, I'm a stand-up comedian out of Indiana in the States originally. I grew up very poor. I was an old trailer park kid. And I have a noticeable disability in my arms that I utilize in my act at certain points. And like you said, my big break, I got finally to do America's Got Talent after 5 years of trying to get on the show. They finally said yes and let me audition for the judges. And I ended up getting third place on season 14, which was still a little mind-blowing. It's still, even with the last couple of years to reflect on it, it's very strange that got to happen.
And talk about the process. Why did it take 5 years to get on? For anybody that doesn't know the process.
It's one of the, it's hard to say exactly because, they don't exactly let you know what their decision-making process is.
Right.
Too many people try to get on the show. They're not giving you personalized notes to let you know why it was a no before that.
Fair.
Part of it, I can say the first couple times I tried, it's because I just wasn't ready. It's one of those things I wasn't there as an act. I wasn't there just as a person. I wasn't ready to do that. As it kind of got farther along, I think it took a little bit, and this isn't me speculating. No one's told me this directly, but anyone who's listened to my stand-up knows that I don't do the inspiration porn version of, disability. I'm not here trying to be like, puppies and kittens and inspiration. Like I'm kind of in your face about it. And I talk about the real parts of it. And I think a lot of TV people were kind of a little scared of that because you just don't know. That's not how people with disabilities are generally portrayed in the media. So I think that was part of it too. They were a little worried about how palatable it would be. Not that I'm not filthy, I'm not vulgar, but like I'm very in your face about what I'm talking about and what I'm doing. Luckily, they took the chance and said yes, because I think I proved everybody that I knew what I was doing.
And talk me through the process of your very first audition, and you got your yeses. Were you afraid to be in front of Simon Cowell? Talk about, everyone wants to know that.
It sounds strange, and it's going to sound like I'm trying to be like a tough guy or whatever, because anyone who knows me personally knows I am terrified of just about everything. like if you name something people are scared of, I probably am scared of it. For whatever reason, when it came to doing America's Got Talent, I knew I was going to crush it. Like I was so prepared. I had been doing comedy for 12, 13 years at that point. I knew what I was doing. When I got on the stage, I was I'm not going to claim that I was completely, solid as steel. Nothing was going to hit me or anything. But once I got out there, and especially once I got the first little laugh from Simon, I was like, oh, it's on now. Honestly, I knew I was going to crush the audition. The nervous, scary part, the second I got off stage, I almost threw up, because that was sort of the, I was more scared of because when you go in, I've always had this mentality when I do shows, where I do anything, that like whatever happens, I'm going to leave there. If I do well, it stays in the venue. If I happen to bomb, it stays in the venue. It's no big deal. Whatever, I move on. Once I did so well at that audition, I kind of already knew, like, oh, this is going to be a thing. And that sort of like scares you a little bit. Like it kind of just hit me in a way of like, oh no, my life's about to change. Very, very, very much.
Absolutely. And so after, when you came back, I guess before we move on to the next question, and thank you for that, is Howie laughed his head off. So what does that mean to you? Howie, as you know, Howie Mandel is the pioneer of comedy. He's somebody all of us grew up looking out, looking after, wanting to be. And the thought, did you ever imagine you would be standing in front of him and making him laugh so hard?
It's one of those things that, again, I was confident going in, but excuse me, it was in the back of my head. Like when you go on to a show like that, obviously not everyone that's a judge is an expert on everything. Like for instance, Simon Cowell knows nothing about stand-up comedy. I love
Right.
Simon very much. He doesn't know a thing about how this works.
It's not his forte, of course.
Exactly. Howie does. So it was one of those things that, like, I mean, he's a legend. A lot of people now in the States might only know him as, he's the quirky judge from America's Got Talent. He's a legend, like you said. He is
the Queen of Canada.
Yeah, it's ridiculous how big a deal he was in stand-up, and still is. He's a big influence still. Yeah, and it would have been heartbreaking if he didn't think I was funny, because he knows what he's talking about. That's the thing. Yeah. If Simon would have, for whatever reason, been like, I don't get it, I don't think it's funny. Well, he's not a comedian. He doesn't know how this works anyway. Howie does. So if Howie would have been like, you're no good, I would have went, well, it's time to get another job, because I think he knows. So it was very cool. And Howie's been fantastic. Like even now, if I need any advice or I have a question, he will take the time to answer. He talked me up on like TV interviews after AGT. Howie's the best. He's done so much for me. I love Howie very much. And that's not just pandering to Canada either. I legitimately love Howie.
All right, because we know we're on to those sort of things. We can tell if you're pandering, right? Actually, I should have stipulated before the interview, no pandering.
No pandering. All right, so I should not mention my Our Lady Peace CD collection or anything like that.
Let's talk. You know what? Before we go on, let's talk about all that behind you.
Oh yeah, that's my massive. This is about a third of my video game collection. So that is my big thing that I do. So a lot of comedians have vices on the road, where maybe it's drugs, maybe it's, women, maybe it's a lot of other more, nefarious things. I'm a big old nerd who collects video games.
It's yours is probably more expensive.
It is, but I will say the one thing, and this is what people who have collection problems always say to justify it. It's an investment. I could sell this for get money back. Exactly. Not a hoarder. Yeah, my poor wife. I don't think she fully knew what she was getting into. So I live in California now, which is where she's from. I moved during the pandemic, and I don't own many things. Like outside of my video game collection, I don't own a lot of stuff. I'm not a You know, I grew up so poor that like I'm not a car guy. I'm not like an expensive clothes guy. I don't own anything except for my video game collection. And she knew I played video games and she knew I collected. I don't think she quite envisioned this. And then the other room I have over there that is
So
also
you're like the Netflix of video games. Like this is Netflix headquarters of video games.
exactly. My goal is to be cool uncle. Anytime that any of my nieces or nephews come over, I'm the cool uncle who has every video game they can imagine wanting to play.
That is absolutely fabulous.
Yeah.
And so a little bit about you. So you say you grew up poor, and so was comedy. A lot of folks that are in the biz talk about how comedy is a way to reflect, a way to deal, or a way to cope. Is that the situation with you?
100%. And it was never it's always strange how that works, because like at the time, you know, I grew up in a really small town. So my hometown is a little place called DeMott, Indiana. It's about as big as it sounds. It's in Northwest Indiana, about an hour or so away from Chicago. Little farming town, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people tops. It's not a big place at all. I was clearly the only person who had anything like this. So, and I'm sure as many people listening can relate to, it's tough being a kid no matter what your circumstances are. You know, like one little thing can happen and now you're bullied for your entire child. You know, like there's always that. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm not saying it's right. That's just how being a kid is. And obviously I had something that could have been a easy target for really mean kids. So
Sure.
I don't know if I don't know. I never made a conscious choice. I was luckily just blessed at birth with having a quick wit.
You
So
are pretty witty. You know that, right?
yes, it's one of the things. Again, I don't always have the best self-confidence about myself in a lot of ways. I do acknowledge that, like, I got a good wit. It's something I'm very proud of.
You should
Um,
be.
but I used it to, you know, no one ever bullied me. That was always the thing. When I first got to AGT, they kind of asked, because I think they assume that if you have a disability or something different about you, that,
Yep.
oh, you maybe had a rough childhood, you maybe got bullied. I never got bullied because I was so much better at making the jokes than anybody else. Like I
Take them
was.
to the punchline.
Oh, exactly. And it was so funny. And I always made sure I never made fun of anyone else either. Like my comedy as a kid wasn't, oh, I'm going to bully an even weaker kid than me. I never did that. You know, I was just quick witted, and then everyone was just like, oh, he's cool. But it was definitely a coping mechanism. It's as much as I feel that like I've kind of got it figured out now, having a disability and living, I wouldn't have chosen this. You know, it's a weird thing. I'll put it in video game terms. If this was my create a character, this is not the model I would have picked. You know, there are a lot of difficult things with having a disability. So it was tough, and it took me a while to get into a good headspace with it, because you spend your whole childhood making fun of yourself. You know, you start to believe some of those things after a while. So I had to like recalibrate the other way when I became an adult. But yeah, it was 100% a way it was survival. Being a kid is surviving sometimes. And that's kind of what comedy was for me. It helped me survive.
Absolutely. And what is your background? So for schooling and stuff like that.
So college
Any
wise,
performing arts or anything like that in your portfolio?
growing up, no. So as a kid, I was more, I was always a good student. My family has been, like, all my siblings, my parents both, school, like the academic part was always very easy. So I never had to worry about that. I was always a sports kid. So that was, you know, I played baseball, basketball, football growing up. I always loved pro wrestling. I did not make that a secret when I was on America's Got Talent. There was you know, obviously Chris Jericho, another Canadian legend, is a good friend of mine now because of everything with AGT, which is very cool. That was always what my goal was going to be. So I never focused on anything like, you know, I wasn't going to arts camp. I wasn't going to theater camp, nothing like that. But when I got into college, I took an intro to theater class and fell in love with it. So I ended up getting my degree from Indiana State University in Indiana with theater. So I have an acting background for there. And that really kind of helped me when I transitioned into doing stand-up.
Right. And when you think of talk about the transition, I guess, a little bit.
From theater to stand-up?
Yeah, like, because is that the same, like, to folks that aren't, you know?
It's they're two sides of the same coin, I guess, but they're different enough. So I loved doing theater. The one thing that kind of didn't end up working for me as things went on, and this makes it sound like I'm selfish and I'm a little bit of an egomaniac, but I don't mean it as harshly.
Right.
It was too collaborative for me.
Okay.
So as much
Okay.
as I loved doing theater and I loved performing, I didn't feel like I was getting to tell my story. You know, it's like, oh, well, we're doing this and I'm working with all these people and we're telling Shakespeare's story. You know, this is what Shakespeare wants to talk about. I was like, no, I want to do what Ryan Niemiller wants to talk about. And theater, it's a lot harder to do that type of thing because I'm not a writer in that sense. You know, I'm not writing scripts and things like that. So for me, once I started stand up, all the theater stuff helped because I knew how to be on stage. I knew how to wait for my laugh to finish before I talk. I know how to find my light. You know, like all the kind of technical stuff that you don't know ahead of time when you start stand up. I kind of already knew how to do that. The real scary transition is, sure, there's the big risk of, oh, I can, or the big reward potential of, oh, now I'm telling my story. It's going to be all on me. I'm the greatest. Look at me. Look how well I'm doing. It's also you open yourself up. You're very vulnerable on stage. Even to this day, I'm 15 years in and relatively successful. And even now, if I try a new joke that doesn't work, it hurts personally, you know, like, because like I thought of this thing, I loved it. I'm going to share it with you. Oh, you hate it? That means you hate me. So
But that's a good thing that you feel that way, that you have that feeling. I think that that's what keeps you genuine. That's what keeps you fresh.
Yeah, exactly. Because I care.
On guard, guarded.
Yeah, yeah, and it's one of the things that I will always tell new comedians. If it doesn't hit you one way or the other, you don't care about it, so you shouldn't do it. I don't believe that everyone who does stand up needs to have the end goal to, you know, have a Netflix special or be, you know, the most famous comedian in the world, because everybody has their own reasons for doing it. But you need to have some emotional connection to it because it's a hard business and it can be rough on you. Like I said, being vulnerable every night can take its toll on you. You have to be very careful with like mental health and self-care. But I love that part. When a joke goes bad, obviously it still hurts, but when something you've been thinking of and it's like it works perfectly, there's no better feeling to me than that. It pays off.
Absolutely. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about your third place.
Yes.
When you found out you were in the top 3, I think anybody that watched knew your face said it all. Talk to me. What went through your head? What were you thinking? Talk us through that.
So initially, when I did America's Got Talent, my goal was to make the finals. Obviously, I wanted to win. I think that goes without saying. Anyway, if you're on that show, you probably want to win. But my goal, from just a career standpoint, was the finals. As a comedian, if you make the finals, you now get to do this for a living. There's no fear of having to do a day job ever again, unless you want to. That type of thing. I had buddies who have been on the show before who made the finals. I saw how much it did for them and their careers and their lives. I was like, that was my goal.
Skyrocketed, I bet.
Exactly, 100%. AGT is a very quick change. You can go from nothing to something very quickly on that show. So when I made the finals, I felt my final set was my best one because all the pressure was off at that point for me. Because like I had reached my goal. Now it was kind of like bonus time to do that. So I had a really good set. I was confident with it. And just kind of knowing a little bit about how the show works and how people tend to vote on that type of thing, I was like, I have a good chance at top 5. I'm not going to win. Cody Lee is the winner of this show. I think we all kind of knew that, you know, and well deserved. That's not me hating at all. I'm still good friends with him and the family. But so in my head, I'll tell you kind of my thought process. I thought I was 4th. I honestly thought that was my goal. When I made the top 5, I kind of looked. My thought process.
Mentally, you didn't want to give yourself 3rd, or you just were like,
No,
"This is."
Mentally, I thought I was first. You know,
I love it. I love it.
Like confidence-wise, I thought I deserved to win.
I love it.
But like realistically, it's one of those things too that like you can have confidence and then also just look at how the world works, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're not confident or that you're being pessimistic or anything.
Sure, of course.
Just knowing kind of how people vote and like kind of what the trends were of that show, I thought it was going to be Voices of Service at 5th, who was the military singing group, who they're all fantastic, wonderful people. I thought they were 5th. I thought I was going to be 4th. I thought Detroit Youth Choir, because of just how big of a group it was, what a big following they had in the Midwest, or that I thought they were going to be 3rd. I thought V Unbeatable was going to be 2nd. I honestly thought V Unbeatable was the best act of the entire. They
were pretty phenomenal.
Myself, they were amazing, and seeing it live was even more spectacular. I was on, I think 4 of the 5 rounds. I was in the same grouping with them. Getting to see that in person, you just go, okay, yep, that is amazing. And then Cody Lee, like we said, was the winner. When they start doing, okay, we had the top 5, they start doing the results, and you're kind of playing it up. You're still nervous because you never know what can happen. But in my head, I was like, okay, get ready for 4th. Voice of Service gets 5th. I'm like, all right, this is going to be, this is me now. And then when they announced V Unbeatable was 4th, I'm glad they didn't have a camera on my face, because I remember looking up towards like where my friends and family were.
Right.
And just going, what the F? Because in my head, I thought it was a no-brainer that V Unbeatable was at least 2nd, in my head. And once they got eliminated, I was like, maybe I did win this thing. Maybe who knows what happened with the voting now. And then when I got 3rd, I was, there was a small, very small moment of like disappointment, but I was so thrilled just with the entire experience. And I always tell people too, on that show, if you're not going to win, you want to get 3rd.
Yep.
Because obviously if you win, you get $1 million. You get to, like, that's great. You won the show.
Who needs money?
Yeah. I mean, when my wife and I are trying to buy a house, so we could use some money.
Oh, we could use money.
Send me some money, actually. Anyone who's listening.
Okay. Please send it to P.O. Box.
Yeah. Venmo me $1. If you all Venmo me $1, I can have a house. But yeah, with 2nd place, if you get 2nd, then you have the disappointment and the thought in your head of like, oh, I was so close, I could have won. Why didn't I? Just how many votes was I down? Just a few more. 3rd, you're just thought, oh, I made it this far. You get that little video package. You get to talk at the end.
A DVD.
Oh yeah, it's the best spot if you're not gonna win.
Yeah,
for sure.
The 3rd place package.
Oh, exactly. That bronze medal feels very nice. I'm gonna tell you that much.
So you got to be amongst the top 3, but being up there with Cody Lee also, he's another example of not letting any of life's challenges define him. So a lot of folks talk specifically about that season because you and Cody like definitely stood out in terms of saying to people, look what you can do if you have the will, or you can go as far as you want to take yourself. And that's anybody, regardless of anything. But how emotional was that when it was announced? What was it like being there, Ryan?
When it comes to all of that, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you and anyone listening right now. That was never the goal. I think a big reason that I did so well on that show, and I've done so well in general, is that I'm not ashamed of my disability and I embrace it, but it's also not the entirety of my identity.
Exactly.
I never, because people can recognize when you're being genuine or not. And I think sometimes, even if the intentions are good, sometimes people, and not just with disabilities, they can be any kind of disenfranchised.
Anything. That's what I was going to say. Anything, I think, goes without saying.
Yeah, when they go up there, though, and you can tell that, like, oh, I'm trying to be inspirational today. That's not genuine, because like you can't go out and be like, I'm going to inspire today. Look at me do this. I'll be honest. One of the, like, in my head, the main reason I got into comedy is I'm a bit of an egomaniac who likes when people, I like being the center of attention. And I like people laughing at, like I like doing that. And I happen to have a disability. So when I went on the show, like obviously I knew that was going to be part of the story I told because it makes me unique. It's different. It's something I have. But I wasn't going out there with this thought process of, oh, I can't wait to inspire all the viewers of America. America, watch out. I'm going to be the most inspirational thing. That's not how I thought about it. I was just like, I'm funny. I'm going to go be funny. When it kind of hit me, though, on that regard, and where I realized it was maybe a little bigger than just me, after that first audition aired, the amount of like DMs and comments and tweets and all that I was getting from people with disabilities or parents of children with disabilities who were like very emotional, and like my son got to see somebody who looks like him on television, and like it brightened him up. Like that, where it kind of hit me, where it's like, oh, okay, maybe this isn't just me being an egomaniac and trying to be funny. Like there's a little more to this. So even if it wasn't the intention when I started all this, it is something I do take seriously now. And to your point earlier, the fact that like 2 of the top 3 in that season were people with disabilities, it does kind of help show that, okay, yeah, you have a disability and it sucks a lot of times. I will never lie to somebody and say my life is easy 100% of the time, because it's just not. Even
but is anybody's though?
Exactly. What I've always, and I fell into this trap too. It's real easy when you have something like a disability where you don't want to try because you blame that for everything that goes wrong. Like, well, if I had full arms, I would have this. And I was guilty of it too for a long time. I went through a lot of really bad depression years because it was like, oh, I would have a better job if I had full arms. I would be married already now, but women don't want to date somebody who has a disability. So that's what, like, you can really get yourself into a funk if you're not careful. Like, it can really hit you hard. And then when I kind of turn that around, that's kind of what I like to show is like, okay, so you have a disability. I acknowledge it's terrible sometimes. Great. You can still get stuff done, though. You're not, it's going to be harder. Probably. That's just how the world works sometimes, unfortunately. But you can still do it. And that was kind of a big thing that I think Cody Lee and I got to show, because knowing Cody and knowing his family too, it's not
you're close with him now, right? You exactly. And Cody are close now.
Yeah. And I still text Tina, his mom, at least once a month. We catch up, and they actually, this was just like accidental, but where I moved in California, they happened to live like 8 minutes away from my house. It was a total accident. This
that
is
where cool.
My wife is from here originally.
Right.
But I mean, just knowing them and talking to the family, it's not like they went out there as like, oh, we're going to be the poster child for disabled people. Like that wasn't the deal. It's like, no, he's a wonderful singer and a great piano player, and he happens to have these things. That was the story, So we take it seriously, and I take it seriously, but it was never like the intention. But, it's the old, I don't know if this reference is too dated, but it's the old, Charles Barkley, I don't want to be a role model. Well, sometimes you just become that, whether it was your intention or not. So take it seriously.
Absolutely. And so then you went back for the champion round. Talk about that. Why did you go back, number one? And a follow-up question to that is, how do you feel you did? Because you made it to semifinals in the champion. So that alone is incredible. So just for anybody listening, tuning in with Mandy Lynn, 107.3 Cfmh, your favorite only community radio station, here with the amazing Ryan, Not Reynolds, and that's what we're doing. That's how we're doing it, just so you know. And so talk me through the process. So you were season 14, top 3, and now you went back, semifinalist again. Talk about that. Like you're onto something.
Yeah. So champions for me, it didn't have the same pressure.
By the way, anybody that's watching the visual of this, there's no Queen, pun intended, of my background. Yeah. Champions, go ahead. We are the champions.
Yes, indeed. I wish I was the champion. Let's just make
Queen references the whole time.
Perfect. So when I did champions, it was kind of, it was like a victory lap a little bit for me. So getting to like work as a comedian and make a living doing this, finally very consistently, making the finals of season 14 is what did that for me. Champions for me was a bit of a victory lap. Like the pressure was off a little bit, but at the same time, once I got there, so I agreed to do it just because I had such a great experience with AGT. I wanted to hang out with the with the staff and the crew and all that more. Like I liked being a part of that situation. And again, from the egomaniac standpoint, it's another chance to be on, worldwide television at least one more time.
If anyone missed it last time, hey, it's me, Ryan.
Yeah, at least one more time. Yeah. And for me, it was very cool. It was a great experience being there because when I first found out I was getting to actually audition in front of the judges, I did a lot of research because I'd always knew of the show. When my friends were on the show, I would watch their sets and things like that. But I wasn't like a fan from the beginning who watched every episode of every season. I didn't have that kind of, background in the show. So right. I did a lot of like, okay, you're going to be on the show. I did a ton of YouTubing just to see, okay, what kind of comedy sets do they like? How do they edit? How do they present? Like what things could I possibly do? I did a little bit of research into how can I maximize my chances to be on camera more, to, really put my,
That's
what do you
smart,
do?
Though. That's very smart.
Yeah, I didn't just want to show up and be like, oh, I'm very talented, so this will work. I wanted to see how the show worked as well. Because you're selling yourself. It's not just being talented on that show.
I guess I never thought of it that way.
A lot of people are talented. They get on that show. It's a matter of like, you also have to connect as a personality. So I did a ton of like watching. I was watching old Golden Buzzer videos. I was watching stuff from like Britain's Got Talent and Australia's Got Talent.
And you're like, I want to be Susan Boyle.
Exactly. I was just watching all of this stuff and getting to do Champions. For me, it was cool because I got to be on like shows with people who I had become fans of from watching those clips, So like now I'm friends with Puddle's Pity Party, for instance. And
that's a good one.
Yeah, there's just like stuff like that who like he couldn't have been a nicer dude who I was just a fan of. So that's a thing that a lot of people I think forget. Like when you're on that show, obviously you're one of the talents and you're one of the people, but I'm still a fan of stuff.
That's one of my follow-up questions from folks is, do you get starstruck still? And who is your biggest celebrity that you got to meet? And did you do anything embarrassing or fangirl or scream or?
No, luckily I've learned to control that. I'm not going to say I don't get still starstruck or impressed because I'm a human being who still likes things, like I still have hobbies and I still have.
Of course. I know you fangirled when you got on with me, but you were able to get that comment.
100%.
I appreciate that.
The fact that I'm glad you can't see from the waist down because I've already peed myself in excitement. That's where I'm at here. So I was very fortunate when I started comedy. I started in Los Angeles.
Okay.
So very early on, not that I was on the same level by any means, but I was accidentally getting to do shows with some pretty big names. So like for instance, I did a show at the Hollywood Improv. I was maybe a year in. It was just like a showcase show, and Robin Williams randomly showed up and did a set. So was I starstruck? Absolutely. But it was very nice. Like I kept it together, but it was nice like having those kind of experiences early that now I could see, okay, they're just regular people who happen to be really good at something, So I was able to keep it together. So with comedy, I don't get starstruck anymore because in theory, I could be Robin Williams one day. I'm not saying I will be, but at least I'm in the same world. There's at least a slight chance. So I got more starstruck when I met Chris Jericho, honestly. So for the finals, for anyone who might not follow AGT specifically, the finals, you always do like a duet, like a celebrity duet kind of performance. And with comedy, you can't really, like a singer can go up there, do a duet with another singer. Great. It's fine. Comedy, you can't really, I couldn't go up there with, Bill Burr and we tell jokes together at the same time. It just doesn't work. I had done that, like this kind of character a little bit. It's part of like the branding that I do for my act now, where the cripple threat is basically, it was going to be my pro wrestling name. And that's 100% true. When I was training to be a pro wrestler, that was the name I came up with.
I love it. It's so clever.
Yeah. And I didn't want to get rid of it when wrestling didn't work out because it's really hard. I didn't want to get rid of the name, but that's a lot of the branding I did. That's what cripple threat is. That's what Club Nub is. It was just,
I love it.
Yeah, it was just pro wrestling to me. And they kind of asked me when I got to the semifinals, they start planning because they don't know who's going to make the finals and they have to do like a quick turnaround. They were like, who's your favorite wrestler? And I was like, well, it's Chris Jericho. And that's kind of, Yeah, he's the best. I love him.
I dumped him.
Well, he probably deserved it. He is a bit of a
he
scumbag too.
He did.
So.
He was clingy. He was really clingy. We'll take that one offline though.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Yeah, I don't want to start any rumors or get any lawsuits going here.
Yeah, again.
So when I got to do that with him, we filmed the sketch, which was very well received. I had a great time. We just hit it off right away. And I was starstruck, but I also knew like I had to work, like we had to film this stuff. So I couldn't just the whole time.
Yeah.
But Chris Jericho, and I've told this story a couple other places before, and I've told it to him too. He was one of the reasons I got into wanting to be an actual performer.
No, really?
Yeah. So he this will get into a little bit of the weeds if you're not a wrestling fan, so bear with me. But so back in 1999, when he came to WWF at the time, he had he had a pretty famous debut. They had this big like countdown clock that came off. They didn't know who it was going to be when it ended. So he debuted. It's this massive debut that's like pretty well remembered as one of the best debuts ever in like wrestling history. I was in the arena that night, like kind of accidentally. So it happened in Chicago. We grew up poor enough, but at least once a year, usually for like a birthday present, I would get to go to a wrestling show. And that was the wrestling show I went to. He did his big debut. And it's to this day, it's still one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of. Just being in that crowd and just like feeling that energy. It made me go, okay, I'm going to be a performer. I don't know. At the time, I thought it was going to be a pro wrestler. But like it was ingrained in my head though, like I want to feel that I want to be able to cause people to feel what I just felt here. Fast forward, 20 years later, now I'm hanging out with Chris Jericho. We're filming the sketch, everything's just going fantastic. It was a cool moment. I thought that was the end of it. Fast forward 2 months after that. So we filmed that was like September when the show ended. November comes. I'm doing some shows down in Tampa, Florida. For Thanksgiving weekend. And usually how that week works, you do like show on Wednesday, Thursday off for the holiday down here, and then Friday, Saturday, you do more shows. Chris Jericho lives in Tampa, and he sees I'm going to be down there, so he texts me, and he's like, hey, you want to come over for Thanksgiving?
No way.
What are you doing?
You did not have Thanksgiving with him. I got that
Thanksgiving dinner at Chris Jericho's house. And
as one does. One does.
So to tell you, like I'm almost 40 now. So 40-year-old me is like, oh, I have this really cool friend, Chris Jericho, who lives a very interesting life, and he's done a lot of cool things, and he's just fun to talk to. I have this really cool, interesting person I know now. 16-year-old me is losing his mind every time. I got to do Jericho throws a cruise every year. I was one of the performers on the last cruise, so I got to hang out and be there. It's my life's very cool. So I do still get starstruck. I keep it together because, you got to be professional. But, in summation, you're still fans of stuff. And I was that way even with like the champions, some of the acts on that show too. It was cool to see people who are also at the top of their game doing cool stuff. So it was a great time overall.
So your fangirling was pretty normal then. You kept it to a minimum. And so did he cook the turkey? Did he stuff it? Like, does he like pie? Tell us. Is he a very gentle soul?
He is very he's
like, ow, the pie's hot.
He's deeper than you'd think. It's very interesting. He's a very he's a very interesting guy. Yeah, and we just hit it off really well. I don't know if he cooked the turkey directly, but he did eat it. So he does eat turkey. I will let you know that.
So he is human.
Yes, exactly.
Is where we're at. Okay, and I know you just have a few more minutes left, so I'll just get through the rest of the questions for you. Again, tuning with Mandy Lynn, 107.3 CFMH radio. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about before comedy. Some of the questions are, what jobs did you do before comedy, and how did you like them? Like some folks have backstories of restaurant work that they did, or something like that. Talk about that.
I worked a lot of awful jobs. I'll be honest. So it is a situation where I talk about this on stage sometimes too, but it's true. So comedy for a long time is a very expensive hobby. You put in way more money,
of course,
than you make. Like
traveling.
With the gas and travel and you don't sell tickets, and you're just kind of trying to establish. So you have to work these day jobs at the same time. And unless you have a really, really accommodating day gig, you often have to work pretty terrible jobs because you need something that's flexible. If you're working a job that pays you 6 figures a year and you have to be in the office 5 days a week at least, and then work on overtime on the weekends, you can't exactly drive 400 miles to do your open mics or do your little so you need stuff that's flexible. So I had to work so many terrible jobs. Like I worked at Walmart for a while, I worked at Starbucks for a little bit, Target. I was working that kind of stuff. Stuff that would hire me, like that's another thing too. I don't want to get too bum anybody out, but it can be hard to find work when you have a disability because people assume you can't do stuff. Like that's just kind of, whether they want to admit that or not, they just like, oh, well, he can't work here. How are we going to have to accommodate him? What are you going to do? So I had to work those terrible jobs. And even if I loved them, like I've had some day jobs that were better than others, but it was never what I wanted to do. I had those moments working those jobs because comedy is a long road. So I'm 15 years in now. It took me 13 years to quote unquote make it to any kind of degree.
Right.
And it's hard not to want to quit sometimes. And I don't think it's anyone, if you're ever having those feelings when you're trying to pursue something artistically, I think it's very normal because how it worked for me, when you're in your like early to mid 20s, being a starving artist is kind of sexy.
Right.
It's
Right.
like, oh, like look at this guy. He doesn't care. He's not gonna, get that corporate job. He has those 5 roommates. He's just following his dream. When you get to be 35, it gets to be a little sadder, and I don't think there's a problem with it. Like for me, it wasn't that I was mostly, but like you start to feel that pressure, like my mom's worried about me because I'm still barely getting by and I don't have insurance and I'm not married because I've been, just on the road this whole time. It's becomes a little more difficult on you. You just don't know. There's no guarantee you're going to make it. So I've worked a couple of jobs that could have been good careers, and I was just miserable the whole time because I'm like, well, I'm not doing what I want to do. So my last day job, it was more like an office job. I kind of just quit on a whim. Just one day I was kind of like, I can't do this anymore. Put in my 2 weeks. I was like, I got to bet on myself, at least give comedy one more big push. And then 6 months later, I got AGT. So luckily it paid off, but it was scary. I don't want to have to work a day job ever again. It's not for me.
And how has your life changed? So we talked a little bit at the beginning, and to come back to that is, how has your life changed with busyness? You and I talked about it before, but
yes. So I get to work now. Like obviously the last 2 years has been a little different for everybody.
Yeah, of
a
course.
lot of people are not being a performer in the pandemic era is tough. Like I think we joked about it a little bit. Like I haven't got to perform in Canada in about 2 years. I like performing in Canada. I have a great time up there. I can't do that right now because we can't really travel back and forth the same way. But overall, just having representation now, and the gigs are just of like a better quality, and they're like more financially solvent. All that's good. Being recognized, getting asked to do stuff like this, you wouldn't be calling in 2018, so it's like, it's a cool thing.
Hey, you don't know my level of commitment stalking, first off.
Fair enough. My bad. You're like, I've been a fan since day one.
That's right. I lean in close and I have like a lock of your hair.
No wonder you wanted to sneak me into Canada to do this interview in person. It was a very weird request, but
that'll be the next one. You just hang on there, other Ryan.
Perfect. Yeah, but as far as that goes, just being busy, getting recognized is very cool. Still, it's getting AGT let me reconnect with the woman who's now my wife. We dated like 15 years ago. And she was kind of my one that got away. I was not in a good mental place back then. Like I was in the height of my depression and all that kind of stuff there. So I wasn't the most pleasant person to be around, but she was kind of my one that got away. And we sort of, we kind of stayed in contact off and on over the years.
Right.
But on a whim, when I found out I was getting to do AGT, I invited her to come to the audition.
No.
And just her getting to see me at my best and having obviously turned myself around and fixed, like we rekindled and now we're married, so It's one of those things. I am very glad I did not bomb, because that would have been hard to salvage a relationship if you take that risk, invite the woman you love to see you do this audition,
fail.
Get those 4 X's and get booed off the stage. It would have been hard to recover.
What would the banter be like in the drive home? After that?
After that, I would have just been like, thank you for your time. That would have just been the end. Because at the time she was just kind of coming out, like we weren't like hanging out after, but like she's in the audience, she's in the audience with my mom, like you can just kind of see her in those clips. So it's just one of those things that like my life got very cool. So, not to diminish the experience of people the last 2 years or anything, but even with all that's happened, like my life's very cool right now. It's hard to complain.
So anybody listening, you heard, if you go on AGT, you will find a husband or wife. That is a guarantee.
You have to make the finals, though. You have to make the finals. You cannot win your soulmate if you don't make the finals. All right, semifinals is not going to cut it. You gotta learn to juggle, figure something out.
Okay, and final 3 questions. Is what are you watching on Netflix right now?
So this drives my wife insane. I have a rule that I will not, with very minor exceptions. I try to be accommodating because she wants to watch stuff. But I will not watch a show that is not completely over. So if they're still making new seasons, I don't want to watch it yet. For the reason being, I have no patience. So like if I fall in love with the show, I don't want to now have to sit, because I'm a guy, like if I like a show, I'll get through those 8 seasons in a week. I will just power through it.
Dexter, that was me with Dexter 2 years ago.
Yeah, I will crush that stuff and just watch it. And if I know they're making more seasons, I don't want to have to wait for a year now for new seasons. Like my wife wanted to watch Ted Lasso, and I love Ted Lasso. It might be one of my favorite new shows over the last, 10 years that I've ever watched.
Yeah, Jason Sudeikis, man.
But I am losing my mind waiting for season 3 right now. It's like I just got mad. I had forgot about it until this question, and now I'm angry again, knowing it's not out there.
I'm happy I could help.
so I will watch stuff that's either completely done that I never caught originally, or stuff that has so many seasons that realistically I can't get caught up before the next one goes anyway. So what I'm watching right now, we're going old school here. My wife and I are finishing up King of the Hill. We're on the last season of that, because I think they're doing a reboot of that show where they're now all older and Bobby is older. So we're getting through that. I've been watching The Simpsons. Which is something that there's so, I know that show's still technically on, but there's so many seasons that, and The Simpsons is a show you can just drop in, watch an episode, you're good.
Yeah. You don't need a continuation. You can drop anyone in on that. It can be instantaneous.
Exactly. And then the last show, and I started watching this a couple months ago, and now it's I might need a little bit before I can watch it again. I'd started The Golden Girls for the first time in forever, and now with Betty White passing away, unfortunately, it's a little sad to watch it now, but I'm gonna still go through. So I catch up on stuff like that. If there's any modern shows that I should be watching, please, anyone that's listening, feel free to let me know. And if it's good enough, I will consider it. Because, like I said, my wife wants to watch so many things, and I'm like, is it done yet? Then nope, I'm not in. So I need to meet her in the middle a little bit.
Thank you so much for that. And last 2 questions is, what is on your playlist right now? Who is your favorite band and why?
My favorite band. So I have fallen out of newer music a little bit, just based on priorities changing. And it's nothing. I'm not a old man waves at cloud or yells at cloud kind of guy who's like, new music just isn't the way that it used to.
That's what I pictured, to be honest. That's how I was seeing you.
I'm going to be that guy one day. I'm looking forward to being the dude who
You're
yells at
aspiring to be that guy.
Oh, just being on the porch yelling at kids.
The mall guy.
Quit with them skateboardings.
Yeah.
I'm tired of it. So I just don't follow new music the way I used to, but my 2 favorite bands of all time that I still do get regularly in playlists, One, I joked about it earlier, but I love Our Lady Peace. So I really do.
Of course.
And that is not that sounds like I'm pandering. So this is a true story. In high school, when we got, I think, whatever equivalent of like Dish Network or whatever it was down in the States, we got like satellite TV for the first time ever. One of the channels that I fell in love with was Much Music. So
oh yeah.
so what are didn't they rebrand? Aren't they like Fuse TV or something? I can't remember what.
TV, yeah,
Is that what it is? Yeah.
Much, yeah, and Much on Demand, and down on Queen Street in Toronto.
Oh, yep.
Yep.
So
Canada.
For whatever reason, I just fell in love with that station because like it let me be a little bit of a music hipster because there was like stuff that got played like up in Canada that wasn't getting played. Because
I love that you love that though. I love that you love that.
Oh yeah, so I remember.
Will let you in. I'm sorry.
Excellent. Yeah, so I used to like I listened so much to Our Lady Peace and like Matthew Good Band and all that. Like I loved that because it let me feel like a little bit of a hipster. Like, oh, nobody down here knows who Matthew Good is, but like I love this album's great, you know. So
he sounds like a librarian though. The name Matthew Good, like
he kind of looked like a librarian too. Back then.
Like he works at the front desk and like you got to get back in there. Matthew Good's working. I'm definitely getting a late fee today.
Exactly. And then my favorite band of all time is Blue October. So that
Hate Me Today.
Oh, I love that band. I finally got to see them in concert maybe 2 years ago for the first time ever, and it was amazing. So that just music's not one of those things that like I know for some people it hits them very hard. For me, it's never been like, you know, because I'm not a music guy. Like I don't know how to sing. I can't play an instrument. Like I don't have that. But Blue October always kind of just connected with me on a very deep level. So those are the two. I keep those bands in rotation all the time still.
Absolutely. And very final question, and I'm going to hit stop recording, is the final question is, you have a very busy schedule coming up. And for my USA folks that want to book you or talk to you about booking you, can you be booked? How do they get a hold of you? The man, mystery, the legend, Mr. Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, Mr. Ryan, not Reynolds. Yes. So 100%. So obviously with things being a little crazy right now,
of course,
there's things that have to be factored in with that. But yes, so if you want to book me, you can either contact me directly. So all my social media stuff, it's at Cripple Threat 8. That's how you reached out to me, and as you can test, I respond and figure those things out.
I know. Thanks for I reached out at 3:15 a.m. and 3:16. You're like, sure.
I know, because us artistic types always have late night schedules. It's
we do. It's not creepy.
Yeah, another reason my wife kind of gets mad at me, because she's an elementary school teacher, so she has to be up at like 6:30, and that's sometimes when I'm going to bed.
Yeah, you're just crawling in bed, like stretching. You're like, well, and she's like, no.
Yeah, have a good day. I'm gonna be sleeping this off. So yeah, you can reach out to me. You know, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff there. You could also go to my website, which is cripplethreat.com. That has all, you know, my schedule, has contact information there. And you can also contact my agent. I am with the Gersh Agency. You can contact them. There is not a show I won't consider. I'll put it that way. I'm an old road dog. My career was built on performing anywhere and everywhere. You know, sometimes it doesn't work out because I can't do it at a loss, you know, obviously things like that.
So you won't pay someone to do a show.
Exactly.
Like, we better clarify that right now. Yeah.
Exactly. But you know, a lot of people think this is silly when I say it, but it's 100% true. I love performing in like little small kind of, you know, podunk off the beaten path towns way more than big cities.
Right.
I have fun in Los Angeles, but they can see the most famous people in the world any night of the week there.
Right.
When you go to, you know, you go to a small farming town in Kentucky, they are so happy that you're there. And like the whole town comes out, it becomes an event. You could be elected mayor the next day.
You don't know.
Yeah, hey. you get to feel like a star. So no town is too small for me to go to if everything works out with it. So keep that in mind as well. I love to perform, and I love to meet like real people when I'm out there doing stuff.
Thank you so much for making a minute for me today, Ryan. I do appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in with us today. I'm going to hit stop recording right now. 1 sec.